everyone. Welcome to this week's Karma Cards. Well, energy has been high on and off, but yesterday was a pretty big day because we had the 12/12 portal of December 12th. We had the new moon in Sagittarius, and Mercury officially is in retrograde, all on the same day. So there was a lot of big energy. And one of the big messages of the new moon was looking at what's happening in your life and getting really clear by looking back, right? So we had a 2020 activation code. That's the sun and the moon were both at 20 degrees. So when we're looking at the numerology, 20 is the number of truth, it's the number of disclosure, it's the number of clear vision, and we always seem to have that when we look back. So one of the things that our teams keep asking us to do is look back at what you've gone through, the stories that you're carrying, the behaviors that you keep playing into, and seeing, is this actually serving me or not? And getting really clear on what that is and letting it go. If you have a story, as an example, that no one ever supports you, no one's there for you, but you're literally talking on the phone with someone who's supporting you, then you know that the behavior you're engaging in is telling yourself a story that you have no support when you are literally being supported in that moment. And you might find that actually I do have support. This story comes from a past version of my life, or in the past when I felt like I needed support and I didn't have it. So it's about getting really honest with yourself and getting clear on, does the story I tell myself even match my present moment? Many times we find out that it doesn't. So that's one of the big themes that's coming up with this. Also, the 12/12, that code is talking about learning. 12 is the number of learning and being a student and learning to see from a broader perspective, learning to have a higher view, a higher overview of the situation that you find yourself in. So we can see that we're like being asked to really grow into ourselves. And the same with the Mercury retrograde. I did a whole video on that on this YouTube channel. In the Shining the Light on podcast, we did an overview of Mercury retrograde. This particular Mercury retrograde starts in Capricorn. And so when the mind is in Capricorn, when Mercury is in Capricorn, and Mercury represents the planet of the mind, that mind wants to be seen as an authority, right? It wants to be right about what it's talking about. And when the need to be right is greater than the information at hand, then it becomes about the ego, right? I can't be wrong. I have to be right about this. And so when we're going through a Mercury retrograde, we are reviewing again. We're looking back at like where do I feel like I have to be an authority, or I have to be right? Or where do I put the need to be right over what's actually right in the moment, right? So we're being asked to look at that. Not only that, but our communication can be more effective when we try to use our knowledge not to prove how much of an authority we are or how much we know, but when we can use that knowledge to help someone else. We're much more effective as a communicator. And so part of the lessons of this Mercury retrograde right now, where we're at, is about, rather than proving you have the knowledge, use the knowledge you have to help, either help yourself or help someone else. And you'll see just how effective of a communicator you are. Now we have one more lunation coming up before the end of 2023, and it's going to be the full moon in Cancer. And that's really interesting because we started the year of 2023 with a full moon in Cancer, and we're ending the year with the full moon in Cancer. So it's making these nice bookends, and I'll be talking about that more in the future coming up. The other thing that's going on is, of course, we're having a lot of electromagnetic fluctuations, lots of incoming energy coming into the planet from the sun. We keep getting these bumps and waves of energy, and we're currently in sort of a lull and in a quieter place. But by Friday, and that I believe is the 15th of December, by about Friday, we're going to start seeing those geomagnetic spikes again. So you might be feeling that going through your body again. You might notice that you feel more exhausted. You might feel like your bowels are moving pretty easily. We get a lot of cellular detoxification during these periods of time, and all sorts of symptoms as we're moving this heavier energy out of the body. And what was really interesting is at the Spirit Circle last night, when the team came through, they were talking about looking at the information that's stored in your body at different levels and being able to understand, like before you can clear anything heavy from your system, the first thing is to understand and accept that it's there. Once you have that understanding, once you understand why certain energies like patterns, behavioral patterns, thought patterns, the stories that you tell yourself, once you understand why you've held on to them, they're so much easier to let go. So if you find that that you are like, I'm ready to let it go, but you're not doing the investigation to understand it, well, then it really can't leave, because it's all information and it's for your benefit. It's to help you understand the process of your own life cycle, why you're here, what you're learning, right? These are the lessons that we're learning, and that information must be understood before you can let it go, before you can move forward from it. Try to understand it. So I'm thinking about releasing that meditation onto my Modern Mystic Soul podcast so that you can go through it, because they take you through the process of going through the system and looking at whatever information is there with the intent to understand rather than just to clear. Because once you understand what's being held at certain levels of your body, whether it's in the physical body, in the mental body, emotional body, etheric body, astral, there's so many levels you could be holding information. And once you understand that, why it's there, then you can make choices about it. Like, for example, I saw in my own field, in my astral body, I had a symbol that represents protection hanging out there. And I thought, you know what? For now, that makes sense. Like, that type of protection makes sense. I'd like to feel protected, especially if I'm astral projecting somewhere. So I'm going to leave that information there. I'm not ready to move it. Nothing came forward about it being protection that's blocking me, but rather protection that's benefiting me. And yet at another level, I found a symbol that actually talked about what's holding me back on the mental plane. And that was very interesting and helpful to understand. And by the time I understood it, I was ready to clear it. So that's just something I'm going to put out there for you. I think it's a really helpful way to look at things that are moving, because again, we're not judging what we're finding. We're looking at it with curiosity. And sometimes it can be hard to address our patterns and our behaviors without judgment, right? Especially if you're like, oh no, that's not a positive. Like if you have a pattern of sabotage in yourself, it's hard sometimes to look at that and not have a negative judgment towards it. So this type of meditation is designed to just be curious and look at it almost from the abstract perspective, which allows you to engage with it without judgment, purely curiosity, purely to learn. And when you approach it that way, then it can give you its message. And a lot of times what we're going through in life is simply, it's a message. It's just another part of you trying to communicate with you what this experience means. And by being able to break that down and look at it through the lens of curiosity, then we can more easily understand it, move through it, and adapt forward. So today's message from the team that I wanted to share with you was something I actually started on Instagram Live last week. And I promised I'd go into details here because Mercury retrograde was already starting on me and my technology, and there's nothing more than Mercury retrograde loves for me than to play with my technology. So I'm here to go through the plateau of latent potential with you, and I hope this helps you as you move forward, because we're really getting close to the end of the year, and it's something to think about as you're setting yourself up for success for the year of 2024. And let me break down what that is for you. So first I have a question for you from the team. I want to know, have you ever felt like you've worked really hard towards a goal and yet the results of that goal seem to be ever elusive. It's like you're working and working and working and you don't see it getting anywhere. If you felt that, pop a comment in the chat. Let me know if this is an experience that you've had. If so, I'm happy to tell you you are not alone and that this actually is what's called the plateau of latent potential. What it really is the point at which you're laying the groundwork for your success. We in this society tend to glamorize or celebrate overnight success, and I venture to say that that's actually probably a myth. You know, a lot of times we're sharing the results of the work we've been doing, especially on social media. Some people share their process, but very rarely are you seeing how hard this person works. Even if they're showing you every day I'm working on something, it can almost seem like one day they've just taken off, when really it's years and years of hard work and persistence that got them there. So many times when we start a project, we have high energy, right? We have a big vision, we see where we want to go, and we're pretty revved up. And the start of it actually can get us a lot of traction. I want you to think about something. I'm just going to use the example of like setting up a business, right? You have an idea for a business or something you want to put out there, and you've got all these tasks at hand that's going to get you set up, and there's a lot of energy in it, and you'll see a lot of traction. For example, let's say you wanted to sell some goods and you're like, I need to get a website, I need a domain name, I need branding, I need to have photos of these products, right? And all of these things are very manageable tasks that all you have to do is sit down, do it, and it generates a result, right? You sit down and you work out your branding, whether it's with yourself or someone else, and boom, after a little while, you've got a result. Same with a website. All you have to do is pick the platform, how you're going to set it up, and in a few days, if you're diligently working at it, you've got traction, you've got a website. Same with taking photos. All you have to do is set the time aside, get these photos done, and boom, you have photos, right? So you feel like, oh my God, this is going really well because I'm getting a lot of traction. Things are moving forward, and I can easily see that I'm progressing. And we get really excited about that. We kind of start to buy that no matter what project you're working on, it's going to be like that. It's just going to be boom, 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 win, 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 all the way to the bank, right? And what a lot of us find is we get a lot of traction initially, and then we start seeing this, where I'm putting in the effort and there's not a lot of movement now. Now I'm kind of here, right? I have my website set up, I have my branding, I've got my photos, I've got my products on the site. Now they're just kind of sitting there and I'm waiting for someone. So you start going on social media and you put that out and there's no real response there. You just keep putting it out. It's almost like you start to feel like instead of getting traction, you're putting things in a void. And this is where most people start to lose hope, or they feel like maybe this isn't going to work because I'm not seeing anything. And this is the point where I want to share with you the bamboo analogy, because bamboo is one of those plants that looks like it just grows really fast. Like a lot of people assume bamboo just shoots up really fast and you're going to have bamboo plants in no time. When in actuality, if you were to have a bamboo seed and plant it, and you diligently water it and tend to it, you might see no movement for almost 5 years. And at that point, if you didn't know, you might think, well, I killed that plant. Like, it's not going to succeed. It's already dead. You may have even forgotten about it because nothing looks like it's happening. But in that 5 years, what the bamboo is actually doing is laying a thick network of roots, and they are spreading out. They're moving laterally, and it's creating a whole forest under the earth that you can't see. And then one day you'll see a sprout. In about 5 years, you'd see a sprout. And 6 weeks after that, boom, you have 90-foot bamboo trees. Now that looks like overnight success. Like all of a sudden it shot up. But the whole time it had been working and growing and laying its foundation. And this is a good reminder that growth takes time, and often your growth will be unseen even by you. This is where consistency comes in, and faith. I feel like these are the two things that we need to have, is faith in our vision for ourselves and the consistency to show up even when you don't see your own growth. So as long as you are pouring your belief and your energy into what you are doing, it is going to become a success. It's the sort of the law of energy. It's like what you pour your energy into, you will manifest. And what we need to do is get really clear that the plateau of latent potential is part of the process. It's just like working out, right? I like to use the working out metaphor because we all have experience with how the body works. And you know that if you were to drop down to the ground and do 10 push-ups right now, you wouldn't see any difference in your upper body strength. You might be surprised you could do 10 push-ups, but you wouldn't see any difference. And then if you were to drop down and do 10 push-ups tomorrow, you might actually feel sore and like, I can't do all 10, right? But gradually, if you keep showing up and keep doing it, that 10 becomes 15, becomes 20, and so on, to the point where maybe you're doing 50 push-ups, and then you're starting to see the definition in your shoulders and in your arms, right? But it takes time, it takes months and consistency. If you only show up to it once in a while, you never get past those 10 push-ups. And it's just like that with anything else you're trying to create, develop, or succeed at, whether it's a business, whether it's a new skill, whether it's learning you're trying to acquire, right? Whether it's skills in a relationship, it doesn't matter where you apply this. The same is true, that with your effort, belief, and consistency, you are bound to be successful at it. And so I want you to think about looking back now, since we've been asked to look back at how were you in 2023 when it came to the things you wanted to create. I know for me that there have been a few times where I hit the wall. I tried and I knew it. See, here's the hard part is when you know, it's like I just have to get through that wall that you hit on the plateau of latent potential. There was some podcast work I was trying to get out and do. And I was like, I know all I have to do is just keep showing up. And I did. And I kept showing up, but I didn't see the traction. And I fell into the trap myself, which is why I wanted to talk about this. Because sometimes we still tell ourselves, even when we know this doesn't work, or our ego gets in the way. And it's like, nobody wants to hear from me on that topic. Or fill in the blank with whatever your ego is going to do. It's designed to keep you in the same pattern where you feel like nothing I do means anything. The ego loves it when you think like that because it means, aha, I'm in control. And that's what the ego wants. The ego is one of our greatest opponents. It is a tool that's meant to help us, but it also is one of our greatest struggles when we allow it to be in charge. And on the plateau of latent potential, you are bound to run into your ego and your stories about yourself. So this is the point at which most people will hit a wall, is when they're working so hard and then nothing happens. And then the ego steps in and says, see, I told you that wasn't going to work. See, I told you this isn't for you. See, I told you, right? When you start hearing something along those lines, this is where you've got to make a conscious decision for yourself. And the decision is, I know everything I'm doing right now is creating traction, even if I can't see it. And I commit to moving forward so that I can experience the success I seek. So how do we help ourselves when we're on the plateau of latent potential and we feel we're getting close to that wall? What can we do to sort of reinvigorate our own energy? So I have a couple of strategies for you that you can start adapting right now wherever you are, whether it's getting healthier, having more intimacy in your relationship, creating a new business venture, or developing yourself in some way. Here are some things that we can do. Now, we know what these things are, but my question is, do you reach for them when you need them? Or are they only things that you do to sort of reassure yourself to pick back up? Because getting back up, if you fall down, no problem. Get back up. But we can do these things before we start to fall off track, to stay on track. Number one is to celebrate the small wins. And I mean the small wins, like celebrate if you are nervous about going on like maybe video, right? Like I'm doing right now. I did it. I turned it on. I started talking. I get to celebrate that. That's traction, right? So what's a small win towards the goal you're working on that you can celebrate right now? What is something that you can go, I actually did that? Was it, I got up and I went for a walk, right? I wanted to get out and get exercise and I did that. I had the conversation, I had a vulnerable conversation with someone, right? What is it that you can celebrate? Every time you track that, you will feel your own traction. And these might be baby or micro steps, but every single micro step makes a bigger step, which will create the traction that you're seeking. So celebrate the small wins. Number two, track your wins, write them down. So now we're celebrating them, but if you can see something to celebrate, write it down. There is such a power in writing down your wins. Many times where our brain is sort of wired when we're in default mode to focus on problems. You find it might be harder to focus on how you're winning unless you write it down. So in your journal, write it down. I could do it daily if you want to. That would be probably the most beneficial if you really want to see some traction. But even at the end of the week, you could put it in your planner. You could put it somewhere where you can go back and go, oh yeah, that did happen. It is one of the most helpful tools, and it really helps you feel like you're moving forward. So when you go back, when you need a boost, you go back and you read your wins that you've already had, and you'll be like, oh yeah, okay, things are moving forward. I did get through that. I did show up. And then it encourages you to write it down more. This is giving you a positive success record. So you have facts to fight the ego's attempts at saying this isn't working. You can just pull out that journal and be like, fact, I won here. I also won here. This thing happened and that was a win, right? When you have positive evidence of your success, the ego gets quieter and quieter because now it knows it can't trick you with this isn't working. So point number 3 is to practice self-care. And what we want to do is we want to get good at noticing when our nervous system goes out of whack. So usually when you're going after a goal or you're trying to grow, you're stepping outside of your comfort zone. And guess what? Your nervous system is going to go out of whack because we're not comfortable. And we want to pay attention to that because that's when we're most vulnerable up here. Right? So our ego isn't going to attack us when we feel strong. It's kind of quiet. It's waiting for an opportunity. When your nervous system starts going out of whack, that's when the ego really gloms on and really starts its conversation with you about how this doesn't work and you're never going to make it and don't even try because this is so embarrassing, blah, blah, blah. We want to cut that off by practicing self-care. So when you notice your nervous system going out of whack, here's a couple things to look for. 1, is the body tightening or bracing? That's one of my cues that I notice is that for me, it's the forearms are where I see it the most, but I just feel like my shoulders get higher and tighter and my forearms start to really feel like I'm squeezing. And maybe it's different for you. I think a lot of people, it's actually in the hips and the pelvis. And my energy workers who are watching this, please leave comments. You know even better than I do where we're holding this, but where do we hold tension most commonly when we're bracing, when our nervous system goes out of whack? If you've got some answers, please drop them below and share that with everyone watching so that they can look through that and start trying to check in with the signs of their body. So you just, and the beautiful thing is when your nervous system starts to regulate and you feel more grounded, you actually get better at seeing when your nervous system is out of whack. That's one of the joys I got to learn this year is I actually saw, hey, I've regulated, and then dysregulating was pretty obvious. So if you haven't had that for yourself yet, this is a great time to start. one of the things I like to do that instantly starts me regulating my nervous system is I do the butterfly tap, because this one is just easy for me to remember. There's so many ways you can help regulate your nervous system, but this has been my go-to this year, and it does a really good job. So you can see I'm just crossing my arms in front of my chest, and I'm gently tapping shoulder to shoulder, left to right, left to right. And even as I'm doing this, I feel like so calm. But what it's doing is it's helping to regulate the hemispheres in the brain as well as calming the nervous system. So you're getting both hemispheres of the brain going. And I absolutely love this. And I would just keep doing it until you feel calmer. Another thing that you can do, I just want to keep doing I'm going to be doing the rest of the video like this because it feels so good. But another thing you can do is putting your legs up the wall. So you're laying down, put your butt against the wall, put your legs up the wall, and just stay there for about 10 minutes. And that again will naturally jump kick your parasympathetic nervous system, allowing you to override the tight, dysregulated nerves and get into a relaxed state. But tapping anywhere, I find I also like to tap up here. You know, karate chop point is another good one. Deep breaths, deep belly breaths, long, slow exhales. These are ways that we can step into self-care immediately and help our nervous system. But if you find that that's not enough, then maybe you need to step back completely and give yourself permission to disengage with whatever the task is that you're working on, because you're not going to get to the results you want in a dysregulated state. And for me, that was last week. That's why we didn't have karma cards last week. My husband was out of town on a business trip, and I really wanted to get here, but it was too much for me to do the parenting alone and try to maintain all of the scheduled work things I had. And there was this the ego kicked in. It goes, oh, you can't miss karma cards. You have to do that. People are waiting for them and you're going to disappoint them. But the higher part of myself was like, honey, you're not in the right headspace to do this. You need to take a break, right? There's no one saying that you have to do this. This is something you're telling you have to do. So you got to get clear with, are you being bulldozed by your own ego, which I was definitely bulldozing, and you have to be okay with giving yourself permission to take a break and walk away. And as you do those things, focus on calming your nervous system down and remind yourself that when you are regulated again, you can go right back into it and pick up where you left off. So I hope learning about the plateau of latent potential helps you visualize where you are in a completely different way, because your success is guaranteed as long as you keep showing up to it, and you can still take breaks and keep showing up. It's all about the mindset and moving forward. And when you're looking for your wins, you will see them and you'll start to feel the traction as you move through this period. And the plateau of latent potential, if you stay on it, it actually turns into the snowball. So at a certain point in time, all that work and effort that you've laid down will start to accumulate and you will hit the snowball phase, which looks to other people like overnight success. But you will know just how much effort and energy you put in to make that happen for yourself. And with that, let's look at this week's karma card. All right, if you're new to karma cards, let me quickly show you how these work. I've got 3 decks here: planets, signs of the zodiac, and the houses of astrology. And I've already asked my team, what's the message you have for us this week? And I've got 2 sets of answers, a set in red, which are action related, and a set in blue, which are outcome related. And the way that you play is you tune in with that beautiful intuition of yours and feel what is the message you need this week. Are you looking for divine guidance around actions to take or guidance around how things resolve? And of course, you can always choose both. While you're choosing, let me tell you the timing for this reading. This reading is for December 13th through December 20th. And the flavor of this reading, we've got Uranus, the plot twist planet. So surprises, an unexpected energy is moving through here. It's going to ask us to take some unexpected routes in the sign of Aries, which is all about the determination and the drive to move forward. In the seventh house of relationships and partnerships. If you're choosing action, your spiritual action at this time is to stir up the situation by using your willpower diplomatically. So in regards to what we've been talking about, like getting yourself to stay in there, that is the willpower. And diplomatically is, again, being fair to, in this case, really yourself, because that's who you're going to stir up right now, is you're going to reinvigorate yourself. So whether or not you are in something or you're about to jump in, you're going to prime yourself with, I am ready to jump in this. I am ready to be on that plateau of latent potential because it promises me the snowball if I stay there. And I want that snowball, right? So we're going to do this, but we're going to check in with ourselves and we're going to be like, how are you doing? So it's really about the partnership with yourself, right? We're not going to use our willpower to steamroll, which we have done in the past, but we want to say like, okay, are you ready to do this? You know, I feel emotionally ready to do it. How am I feeling energetically? How am I feeling in my body? What energy do I have to give? I'm going to practice setting reasonable steps for myself. So even if I want something big, I'm going to break it down into the most reasonable step, giving myself every opportunity to succeed at moving forward. Mental action at this time, be open to new ideas about what you think you know about relationships. So as you can see, there is an element to this where we're dealing with other people. Like, how can we engage with other people? And maybe even one of the ways we're supposed to engage with this idea of the plateau of latent potential is to think about that in terms of relationships as well. Many times relationships can sort of hit what seems like a standstill. But remember, everything that you're putting into it is building into something. So again, if you feel like, especially if you're in a relationship and you feel like, whether it's a partnership, a friendship, a romantic relationship, a parent-child relationship, whatever it is, but if you feel like you're in a standstill or things are static, ask yourself, am I looking at this like it's static and not growing? Or do I see that we're in a quiet period where the growth is more underground or the growth is more internal before we start to see its external expression, right? Consider the relationships in your life and looking at them that way versus this good, not good, good or bad mindset. But really, how is this thing growing? Is there something growing here? Is energy being put into it? Is the growth right now more on the internal and individual level, or are we growing together right now? Physical action at this time. Invent a new way, do it your own way, and get a fair deal. With this new moon energy, we're being asked to sort of break out of the patterns that we've held, right? We want to look back at our patterns and go, does that help me? Does getting up at this time of day help me? Any pattern, right? The time you get up, the way that you do work, the order in which you do things, the thought processes that go into it. Do I set myself up to be successful, or do I do things sporadically? There is a bit of review that's going on here. And as we're reviewing it, we might be seeing that there is another way to do something. And even that can create a new type of traction in your life, whether it's in a relationship or towards a goal or developing in some way. We need to look at, how have I been approaching it, and is there another way that I can approach it? And this is really based on your own data, because you might be doing something that you heard someone say, oh, well, if you approach it this way, this is how it works. And that might be your approach. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I'm doing it the way someone else approached it and it's working for them. But we have to look back at the data we have about ourselves and how it works for us. Is that something I can consistently do? How do I feel about it before doing it, while doing it, and after doing it? Like, is it very draining to me to do it this way? Is there a way that I could feel more supported or more at ease while doing it or approaching whatever the subject is? When you do that, that's how you get the fair deal, because you're finally acknowledging your own energy in the process rather than taking on a process. And taking on a process is such a great start. Don't get me wrong. I feel like it sets you up for a type of success, but we always have to go in and reevaluate and go, does this actually work with me? Right? Because everybody has different variables in their life. So even if your lifestyle was very close to the person you're getting this advice from, there's still something different about it. You are the X factor that changes it. And so we want to look back and review and go, does this actually work, or what works better for me? And try to adopt that. And in that way, you're going to help regulate your nervous system, like I was talking about before. So now let's look at outcomes for Uranus in Aries in the 7th house of partnerships and relationships. The spiritual outcome at this time is an unusual example of energies to meet the challenge of balance. So what I'm getting at this time is there's going to be something that you're going to have to do different, right? That's the unusual example. It might not be something that's so far out there. It's just not what you typically do. And because of that, it helps you to achieve or see if this actually gives you the balance that you're seeking. If you feel more regulated by taking this new approach. Mental outcome at this time, a different way of looking at your desires regarding cooperation. You know, sometimes I feel like when we get stuck on the plateau of latent potential, I know people can go into an esoteric spin around that because they're like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do. I'm showing up. I'm working hard. I keep committing. And I just feel like I'm spinning here. And sometimes we go into that place of like, I feel like the universe doesn't have my back. It's not supporting me, right? When we start to understand that this is actually part of the process and it's the tipping point, right? They're showing me those machine games, and I hate these games actually, but they have the quarters. You know what I'm talking about? It's like you see them on the boardwalk, and it's a machine that has like a shelf, and they've got quarters, and those quarters are like sitting on the edge of that shelf, and you're supposed to I think you're supposed to shoot a quarter in, and wherever you push it, it'll push the ones on the edge. And if you do it just right, you'll push a bunch of coins over the edge. And what this is talking about is you're taking a different approach. Maybe I always sucked at these games. I hate this metaphor because I'm like, oh, I feel frustrated already. But it's like you got to look at things differently to get a new strategy to see it. And the coins start getting pushed off the edge. As you adjust your thinking, as you adjust how you're approaching this, instead of seeing this as like a waste of time or spinning wheels, you're like, no, first what's happening is I'm growing laterally underground and I'm building this wide base. I'm building a wide foundation so I have lots of room to play on. When you start switching your mind around what this means, it's almost like they're showing me you're adjusting where the quarter you're shooting in will land, and you're going to land it in a way where you're going to get the payback, like the coins dropped, right? You start, oh, okay. I just had to shift my strategy. I had to think about this problem differently. And they're letting you know you're going like, look at this differently. Look at it like, what if you're not failing? Okay, what if everything's working out is exactly as it's supposed to? And I know that maybe you try to have those thoughts, but you don't really believe them, maybe. I know in the past I sure didn't. I'm like, I believe this is happening, but I don't see anything, and now I'm getting worried. It's actually part of the process. And when you think about it differently and you're a little bit more strategic about it, you start to see the payoff. And the cooperation in this case is like, I feel like I'm cooperating with the universe. Now I feel like the universe has my back. Now I feel like it's watching out for me because I get it. Like, this is the build up to the big show. It's preparing me. It's what it's actually doing is it's teaching you to have a capacity to hold what's coming. The longer you are there, the more comfortable you get with receiving what you want, right? Like, you're like, I've been here. I keep putting in the time. I'm now familiar with this territory. I'm not scared about what's coming. And then when it comes, it's like, oh, naturally, this is mine. I've put a lot of time and energy into it. You don't have that doubt. Now imagine if we all want that thing where it's like I put a little bit out there and it just comes flooding back. Well, that might feel like it would be a great feeling, but what if you don't feel prepared to receive it? What's going to happen? Because some people have this experience. Lottery winners are an example of that experience. They put nothing out there, really, and they get a whole bunch back. And then they don't have the capacity to hold it. And so they close it off, or they lose it, or they just can't hold the energy. So part of the benefit, part of the way we want to look at the plateau of latent potential is it's preparing you to hold everything you've got, because you've put in the time, you put in the energy, you showed up for it, you've been waiting for it, you've been holding the space for it to drop in, right? You've built the foundation. You've got something now energetically that's going to catch what's coming. So when it starts coming in, you're like, yeah, you're like, this is mine. Of course it's mine. I totally accept and embrace what's happening here because I've been ready for it. So we want to see this period of time as not a punishment or even a test, but a preparation to get everything you're asking for. And when you start seeing it like that, it's like you get the payoff. The coins start coming in. You're like, okay, I got this and I can do this and I'm going to hold this space. And if you've got a big dream or you've got something big that you want to accomplish, you might be holding space for a bit, but every time you are holding this space, every time you're showing up and you're preparing to get it, you're getting more and more foundational energy, more and more grounded. So when it starts coming in, you're like, yep, this is mine. I'm ready. Come on in. Physical outcome at this time, an unexpected change resulting from the honesty and strength of your partners. This is so interesting because yes, it can represent other people involved and them having your back, but I really feel like this reading feels more about like the relationship with yourself and the different aspects of yourself, because there are aspects of you that really want what you're going after, genuinely want it. There are other aspects of yourself who are looking for a way out. And I see this all the time as a coach when I'm working with people. I love working with people around their big dreams and the goals that they're going after. But I'm telling you, you meet what you're afraid of on that path, because you're going to take yourself outside of your comfort zone. And whatever you're afraid of is going to show its face right in front of you, whether it's I'm worried that I won't be authentic if I follow this path. I'm worried I'm not going to succeed. I'm worried that I'm an imposter or a fraud. I'm worried that if I put myself out there, I'm going to get rejected. You name it, it will be there waiting to meet you. And that's your partner. That part of you that's not so sure, it wants to go through with whatever it is you desire to go through. You must work with this part of yourself. And the honesty is admitting that that's there, because a lot of times we're so caught up when that part of us shows up, we get really, really caught up in our excuses. Like, well, it's because I see all these people out there putting this out and they seem so fake and ingenuine. I don't want to be seen as fake and ingenuine. So I'm not sure this is the right thing to do. I've literally heard that recently. And instead of acknowledging that's my fear is I'm going to turn into something I'm not. Rather, it's no, there's all these legitimate reasons to not do it, so I'm just not going to do it. I don't think this is the right thing. And then they take themselves off the plateau. They get traction, but then it's not so easy, and they have to face parts of themselves that they're not reconciled with yet, and so they want to leave. And what it's letting you know is, if you meet yourself, these parts of yourself, with curiosity and honesty and a willingness to look at what you're afraid of, you're going to find that you can actually integrate this together. You can recognize that, only an authentic person would worry about being inauthentic. Therefore, you're authentic. That's what you're really saying is, I am authentic. So, test passed. Only a courageous person, a strong person would worry that they don't have the strength to do it. You're strong, like that you have it, right? But unfortunately, what happens is we meet our greatest fear and we let it tell, like, I'm so worried that no one's going to want to watch this or care about what I have to say, so I shouldn't put it out there. And I go through this all the time. If I'm being totally honest with you, yeah, I don't want to be rejected. I don't want someone to be like, oh, her voice is so annoying, I can't stand it, or these are so cliche, or whatever it is. It goes through my mind from time to time. That's why I've been working on trying to get on Instagram Live more, because I freaking feel so uncomfortable live there, and all those thoughts go through my mind. And if I gave in, then I would be missing my opportunity to show up for someone else. And I can't tell you how many times that part of me who gets afraid wants to go, you know what, we don't have to do this. No one's asking you to do it. You can stop. And I'm on the verge sometimes of just like, yeah, maybe I'll stop. And one of you lovely people will reach out and message me or send me something that just really touches my heart and inspires me. And I'm like, that's why I'm showing up. That's right. It's not about me. It's about you. Right? But we get in our own way and we do make it about us. If you think about who you're doing it for, why you're showing up, would this have helped you if someone showed up like this? And then you can show up, right? Then all of those things sort of dissolve. So your partner here is yourself. And the way to create the change you seek, to get the courage to keep going, is to be honest with yourself, right? Look at, I am afraid, but that doesn't have to stop me, right? Feel the fear and do it anyway. You're going to meet this fear if you go after your dream. It is sort of your rite of passage. And what all it's telling you is, welcome to outside of your comfort zone. You did it. And outside of your comfort zone is where all the growth happens, and that beautiful snowball of success that you're waiting for, it's outside of your comfort zone. So don't be afraid to meet your fear. See it as, hey, I am moving for, if I'm seeing my fear, I'm heading in the right direction. And with that, I'm sending you so much love. I've got your back. You can absolutely do this. Whatever it is, I believe in you. You believe in you. And don't give up on yourself, because you deserve to have the life of your dreams. Mwah.